disciples were traveling with Jesus, and he turned and addressed them, "If anyone comes to me without hating his father and his mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Which of you wishing to construct a tower does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if there is enough for its completion? Otherwise, after laying the foundation and finding himself unable to finish the work, the onlookers should laugh at him and say, 'This one began to build but did not have the resources to finish.' Or, what kind of king marching into the battle could not first sit down and decide whether, with 10,000 troops, he can successfully oppose another king, advising upon him with 20,000 troops? But if not, while he is still far away, he will send a delegation to ask for peace terms. In the same way, every one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple." The Gospel of the Lord. Today the Church celebrates the liturgical memory of Saint John of the Cross, a very important saint in history of spirituality. It is a doctor of the Church, along with Saint Teresa, companion of Saint Teresa in the reform of Carmelo. The saint with the humor she had when she got two friars to join her in the reform of the Carmelite order. Then that reform ended up generating a new order. She said, because Saint John of the Cross was short, she said, "I already have a friar and a half." The friar was Father Gracian, and the half friar, because of how short he was Saint John of the Cross. But that half friar was an extraordinary mystic, doctor of the Church, perhaps the most faithful companion of Saint Teresa of Jesus, the one who best understood her. He also wrote like her beautiful poetry, 5 poems, Flame of Living Love. For example, the ascent to Mount Carmel. He proposes a path of union with God. To some who have wanted it to resemble to Buddhism way of trying to reach Nirvana. Nothing farther more from John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Jesus than Buddhism. The search of Nirvana for Buddhists is achieved by extinguishing all desires, by extinguishing all affections, because every affection you have, even the purest and the most beautiful affections, like love for your children, for example, for all affections make you suffer if you do not love your children. Your children did not make you suffer. To extinguish all affection is the goal of Buddhism. They represent it as when they reach Nirvana. As a candle that has just been extinguished, it no longer gives flames and only smokes. The Christian way and the way, therefore, of Saint John of the Cross and Saint Teresa of Jesus is not to extinguish all affections, but to kindle affections for God, which is different, to extinguish the affection of those things that are far from God in order to kindle and to enkindle in us, and that flame of love burns alive. The love for the Lord burnt in our heart. The triple nothingness of which Saint John of the Cross speaks in his ascent to the Mount of Carmel is nothingness. It is abandonment. It is the dark night which deepens little by little until it reaches the last, the night of the Spirit, to leave only the flame that burned, the flame of living God, love. Saint John of the Cross suffered much, suffered when he had to accompany Saint Teresa in the reform, because it was not an easy reform, far from it, to the point they ended up separating the order in two, Classical Carmel and the Discalced Carmel, Carmel Reform. But he also suffered once the reform of the Carmel was already achieved. It is known that he was locked up by the Reformed Carmelites themselves. He was locked up in a convent in a very narrow room. They did not even give him the Eucharist. They did not allow him not only to celebrate Masses and not to receive communion. There he writes in the captivity that lasted several months. He writes that beautiful poetry, "How well the fountain sealed me," the fonte in the old Castilian. How well the fonte sealed me. The fontaine that flows and runs, although it is right. The Eucharist is the fountain that flows and runs, and it was night for him because he could not receive it. He was in prison by his own religious companies. From there, he escaped hanging out of the window. We don't know how could have happened if he had not carried out the feat. St. John of the Cross was a man who honored the name he had given himself after his name, the cross. He did not shun the cross because he was faithful to Christ. He embraced the cross because Christ was in it. For love of Christ, for that flame of living love that burned within, for that flame he embraced the cross. For that flame of living love, for that flame he rejected. He renounced all things in order to remain only with the love of God. I believe that this is the message of St. John of the Cross. Let us spare ourselves from everything that separates us from God. No, we should not be afraid to love. We should not be afraid to love. We should not be afraid to love. We should separate ourselves from that which separates us from God, which is different. The Christian does not have as a motto not to love. The Christian's motto is to love like Christ and to love for Christ. For us, the motto is not the extinguished candle, which is no longer loved anyone, and thus does not suffer, because if you did not care about anything, you did not care whether your children, for example, love you or not, and whether your children have a problem or not. That is not our motto. Our motto of the Christian is the lighted candle, the candle that burns giving light, the candle that offers himself as light for others, and as hot, warm, burning love for Christ. The flame of living love that is within us and that grows within our good works. Let us ask the great Carmelite saint to help us to love Christ as he loved all those around us with an authentic love, in an imitation of Christ, and to separate ourselves from all separate us from God. Amen.